reduce inequality. So before we start, I would like to say that thank you and a special welcome to our panelists who have joined us to share their thoughts for today, and also thank you to all the audience for being here too. So yeah, we being excited to have a discussion with you guys. So then before we start today's forum, I will just explain briefly about our topic today. So we know that the certain courses in journalism analysis, for a long time that certain courses can be labeled as for a man or for women, and this level still shapes the way the students pick their path. So for example, engineering courses is for men and education honors courses is for women. So then we notice that these gender expectations can limit potential, affect confidence, and also can influence their performance. So then I have spent time listening to a lot of students from different fields, and yeah, today they are here to share their thoughts and also experience on how gender has shaped their academic journey and what we can do to make their education equal. So yeah, before we begin, I would like to explain briefly about today's forums and also a few ground rules to make these forums more smoothly. So first is, we will have 2 rounds. So the first round is, I as the moderator, Najihah, will ask each panelist questions or maybe a few questions that are related to your own case. And then the second round, each panelist have to respond to the questions posed by another panelist. And then if we have the time, we might have a Q&A session from audience to our panelists. And then after all of that, we will have a brief conclusions. So yeah, please panelists, do remind that you need to manage your own time. So all panelists have a chance to speak each round. And then please only one panelist speak at a time. So do not interrupt or talk over others. And then remember again, this is not a debate, this is a forum, so no arguing or any personal attack. And last but not least, I hope that everyone to put your phone on silent mode throughout these discussions. So I hope everyone is clear. Yes. Right. So we begin with a panel of universities that comes from different programs. So who have an experience and also the abilities that offer gender representations in their own courses, right? So we will start with panelist number 1, AMIR from counseling students. Okay. And then second is panelist number 2 comes from computer science students. And then panelist number 3 comes from data science students. And last but not least, from international business management students from panelist number 4. So I hope everyone is clear. So yeah, let's begin with the round 1, which is I will ask questions. Or maybe a few questions again to each panelist. So let's begin with panelist number 1. So are you ready with that?
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, panelist number 1, you know that you are essentially as a male student in a field that is often dominated by a female interaction. So as a counseling student, have you ever felt judged or out of place as a male student in your own process?
Okay. Before I answer the question, let me introduce myself again. My name is MOHD JAMIL. I am a first year counseling student. Okay. Have I ever felt judged?
Yeah.
Yes, of course, definitely. Because I am a male in a so-called feminine course, that is counseling. So, usually in many classes, I am one male in the classes. So, it makes me feel stand out, even no one say anything directly. So, there is also stereotypes that women are naturally more empathetic or emotionally intuitive that can lead to subtle doubts like, do I really belong here? Do I really belong in counseling course? It makes me confused. It makes me scared sometimes. Okay? And I have sometimes feel the need to prove that I am very serious in this course, the counseling course, and that I have the emotional qualities people expect in this field. Thank you.
I see. Thank you for sharing that and this one. So then, just now you mentioned earlier that how some people are still associated with emotional
I strongly believe they do. Because from a very young age, we all get messages, some subtle, some very clear, about what is considered a typical career for men or women, right? Okay. For example, boys are often pushed towards engineering, science, IT, or tech courses, and women often push towards nursing, education, counseling, or teaching. So family course, like I said just now. Okay, so these expectations are so common that students often don't even realize they are being influenced from a very young age. So yes, gender stereotypes are still shaping a lot of our academic and career decisions, even today. That's all.
So then I hope you guys understand it, but if you can ask any questions later, or if you've got time, or maybe our panelists can ask it, right? So yeah, thank you, panelist number 1. So next we have a panelist number 2, students come from a computer science that of course that traditionally had more male students, but now we can see that something is shifting. So panelist 2, do you think that the female students in your own field face more pressure or less support?
Okay, thank you, Ms. Moderator. Before I answer the question, Assalamualaikum and good afternoon to everyone. My name is MOHAMAD and I'm a first year student studying computer science. So to answer that question, in the past, computer science was indeed known as a male-dominated courses. But as Moderator said before, it is now facing changes where, based on my own experience in my classes, actually, there is more female students now rather than male students. However, even with more female students, it doesn't mean that gender inequality disappeared completely. There are still some female students that feel pressured that they need to prove themselves, especially in technical tasks, such as doing a coding and designing a system. And at the same time, the male students now find themselves in a minority, which also brings pressure to them to perform well, as others assume that we male students are actually naturally good at tech, although some of them are not. So I believe the gender dominance, whether it's male or female, does bring an effect towards male and female students to both sides in a different way.
I see, that's a very thoughtful point. But what role that can make male students play in changing that?
Yeah. In changing that, we need to create a more respectful and supportive environment. So, what male students can play a role in that? I think the male students can play a role in that by helping, encouraging a fair teamwork, being allies, and challenging the stereotypes whenever they see them. That's all.
Thank you to our panelist number 2. So now let's move to panelist number 3, our data science programs students. So generally, like you know that you work with the data, and data often that reveals patterns that you might miss, right? So how can we use the data to better understand the gender inequality in the academics?
I see. First of all, thank you very much, Ms. Moderator Najihah. I'd like to introduce myself first. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is AFZAT and AZLAN. I'm currently an IT student majoring in data science. So, referring back to your question, I'm actually very excited to share with you guys how data science can actually shape the world in terms of gender inequality. So basically in data science, when we do something, we don't really just think about something based on hunches or like assumptions. We always use data as our methods. So what I'd like to share with all of you guys is that we can actually use data in order for us to find the inequalities in terms of academics. So today I'd like to share with you guys two of the most essential areas that we have to cover, which is the first one being the academics performance metrics itself, and also the second one is based on the classroom participation. So first let's talk about the first one, which is the academic performance metrics. So what we can do with data is that data shows us, although we are seeing that gender inequality happens, right? But data shows that female students are more in terms of numbers based on male students. However, this doesn't show that we have equal representation. For example, female is more than male. However, male students are more represented and their voices are more heard than the female. For example, I tell you STEM. We have more women in STEM, but they are underrepresented. So what can we do with data? We can use this data in order to have some interventions where we can actually support these underrepresented groups. So that's the first one. The second one being the classroom participation. Now, in terms of classroom participation, where areas such as like the panelists you mentioned before, how female are usually doing the easy part and the male are doing the hard part. This is actually the pattern that we must create, because numbers shows that the classroom environment actually plays a huge part. So in data science, there is an error, because we usually look at quantitative data, which is GPAs, all the stuff that is numbers. But we are neglecting the data that is qualitative. For example, the participation data. So what I can conclude is that for data to give equality for both genders, is that we have to include both quantitative and also qualitative data.
Very insightful. But are there dangers that if we rely too much on their data, and then like what we might miss when we only look at the numbers?
Obviously, because in data science, we definitely use models. For example, we both know that right now we have AI models, right? So these AI models, they can make error as well. So when this happens, data such as the gender data collection that we did based on universities and classrooms, we might have error that we miss. So missing data and also outliers, also redundancy, this all can happen. So these are where the interpretation bias might happen. So with this, it may lead to error. So this is what we have to overcome. So that's all.
Okay, so thank you to panelist number 3. And finally, let's hear from panelist number 4. So you are actually the students come from the international business management, right?
Yeah.
So that day you are studies on how the different cultures shapes in education. So based on your perspective, so how do gender norms differ across the countries when it comes to the activities?
Right, thank you, moderator. So first, let me introduce myself. So my name is HAMIZAN, and I am a second student of international business management students. So as international business students, from my perspective, yeah, this actually I had a chance to learn a lot about business systems and also marketing. But not only that, I actually learned a lot about how different countries and also cultures view things like genders, especially in education. So, for your questions, from my perspective, is actually gender norms in countries, especially it is actually depends on certain countries. So, some countries actually it is common for women to take on high education levels and leadership roles. But in certain countries, it's actually, even if they have the chance to pursue the study on higher education levels, they still have those strong expectations if they need to pursue the studies in those that panelist one just mentioned, those feminine courses, just like teaching, nursing, or even like other social science courses, rather than those dominated courses by men and expertise women like coding, as well as you say just now, like engineering and technologies. So just all from my perspective.
But then since many universities are now offer international or honor programs, right? So what can the global academic programs do to be more inclusive across cultures and also genders?
So now when we talk about those global programs, such as international exchange, those joint degrees, or maybe online degrees, online degrees that actually cross culture by doing all those programs globally. So I think this is actually a great chance to make this better. So firstly, of course, they can promote inclusivity by giving equal scholarship opportunities to both men and women students. Often, women are actually left behind because not of their talents or skills, but actually it's based on simply they don't get the same support as male students. So secondly, I think it's because this program can include mentorships by successful women leaders in business, such as maybe Datuk Yasmin bin Mahmud or even Datuk Sri Vida herself. So when female students see this, the same person, a woman, same as them, succeed in this field, they can feel motivated and they can feel that they are belong to this field and they do get the same support and belong to this spaces too. So in the end, I think that education should have a space where everyone are welcome and encouraged in this business. So whether you are a man or a woman, your voice and skills are actually matter. Even though we have a long way to go, but with this effort, I think we can build those academic environments which is fairer for everyone. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Number 4, and then thank you to everyone also for sharing your honest thoughts and also perspectives. So then from the number 1, we can see that each panel draws an important insight. Like for example, panel 1, he said that his experience that the gender stereotype still shapes on how students are judged even for simply choosing a course that they are passionate about, right? And then for panelist number 2, say that even the gender ratios is being shaped, but then the pressure is technically it does disappear, but just impact the range differently whether it will be for the male or female. And then for panelist number 3, give us that the data can be highlighted the gender gap in academics, but only does pass on the students. So technically without a context, it could lead a mystery or misunderstanding. And then lastly, our panel 4 show that the gender norms in education are not the same everywhere, but their impacts can be often similar, which limits to students what they need and pursue. So now, let's go to the round 2, where we will now have a panelist can have a chance to ask the questions to another panelist. So I guess we can start with the panelist number 1. So is there anything you want to ask?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Nurul. Okay, so I would like to thank panelists too for bringing up some really important points that many students face pressures about gender stereotypes. So I actually saw a lot of parallels between your experience in computer science and mine in counseling, even though we work in very quite different fields. Okay, so here's a question for you. You mentioned how task division in group work often follows genders, right? Okay, so in your experience, have you ever seen a team actively break that pattern? And if so, how did that impact the outcome of the project?
That's your question? Thanks to Amir for your question for this one. So the answer to your question is yes, I've definitely seen teams that broke the old stereotypes pattern. As I've said earlier, in my classes, there are now more female students than male students. So instead of following the old stereotypes, like guys doing the coding and girls doing the presentation, we now usually assign the roles based on skill. So in most of my group projects, we are actually dividing this task based on each person's strength. So let's say if someone is very good at coding and has an experience and very skilled at it, then they will naturally take that part. It also applies to when someone has a better organizing and presenting skills, they will handle that part. So gender doesn't really factor in making that decision anymore, at least in my experience. For example, in one of the recent group projects, there is female teammates, which in that group project she handled the whole coding section all on her own because she is very confident in that and has experience in it. And at the same time, in the same group project, the one that handled the final presentation is my own friend, the male students, because he has a very good communication skills and very good at handling slides. So I think, and the result of the group project was actually very great. The work was smooth and the communication was strong, so everyone felt very awesome. So I think that is the key difference where we don't let the gender decides which roles will the person takes, and it will also make the person in that group feel more comfortable to contribute, and it will also build a mutual and respect together. So yes, I've seen teams that break the pattern, and honestly it makes the whole project experience being more positive and productive for everyone. That's my answer. Yes, Ms. Nurul. Actually, I have a question to panelist number 4, AMIRUL, about what you said on how cultural expectations actually shape the student choices. So, as a computer science student, even though in my classes now there are more female students, I still see that their confidence and what tasks that they take in their class, it's still influenced by their gender. So do you think this kind of gender expectation only just some cultural issue in some countries, or they also still exist in Malaysia, even in modern universities?
So this is questions.
Yeah.
Alright, so thank you panelist number 2 for your questions. So my answer is actually yes. I do think that this gender expectation still exists here in Malaysia, even in modern universities. So while we have made progress, actually there's still many of students that feel pressure on following those traditional rules, like men may be leading those projects and women doing the organizing tasks. But it's not just a cultural issue in other countries. It's actually still those issues, same issues in Malaysia, even around us, even for today. So that's all for my answers for your questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moderator. I'm very intrigued with panelist 1 content. You said that as a male student currently pursuing which you can say a very care-oriented course like counseling and stuff, right? So I actually kind of relate to this. I'm scared of girls. So knowing that your class is majority is females, I'd like to know from you, from your own perspective, do you think that these sorts of judgment, do you think it comes from the society, the people who is not even in the course itself, or do you think this judgment comes from within the academic environment, such as the students or the lecturers?
Okay. Thank you, panelist AFZAT. That's a very good question. Okay, I would say the judgment comes from both society and academic, but in different ways. From society, there is this old stereotype that care-oriented roles like counseling, nursing, or education are more feminine, like I said just now. So when people find out I am a male counseling student, I sometimes get those surprise looks or assumptions like, maybe I'm doing this as a second choice, or that I will be as emotional skilled like female student. But in the academic setting, the pressure is more subtle, not direct. Most of my classmates and lecturers are supportive, but there are small moments, especially in group work or discussions, where usually I will do the slides or presentation, but when it comes to interview the counselor, interview the client, it will come to female students because they assume that women students in counseling have more empathetic and emotionally stable and understanding rather than me, a male student. So, like, I'm just as empathetic or emotionally aware as people expect in this field. So overall, I would say society builds the stereotype and the academic world sometimes reinforcing without realizing. That's why open conversation like this is really valuable to me. Thank you.
So last question is
Alright.
to moderator, which has for me to talk again. So I would like to ask question to panelist number 3 of that. So based on your thoughts and points as now, really short questions. No. Actually, do you see a gender gap between the participation in your data science classes or groups? If you see this, what you think that causes this?
I see. Thank you very much for explaining before. Now, this is actually very interesting because in data science class, it's actually we actually share some common things because we came from the same school. So what we can see now is that we have this some sort of stereotypes that tech courses are usually male. The majority is the male students, right? But the thing is, in reality, in my class, for example, my class has more female students than male students. In like 30 classmates, I have like 10 males, and then the other 20 is all females. So what I can see is that these female students, it's not because of they are not capable than the male students. I think it's far from that. But what I see is that the one that Ms. Tu mentioned just now, which is in terms of confidence. They lack of confidence other than the male students. And here's why I think so. Because the male students, we look at their childhood, how they grow up. They grow up with games, they grow up with texts. This is how they are open towards technologies. So when they took these classes, they have more knowledge. Like they have this sense of like, oh, I know more than you. So these female students, even though they are more in terms of numbers, they still have this sort of like, you know what, maybe I should just let him do things. I think he knows more. So this is what we need to break here, the pattern. Because we are going in a direction where gender norms are no longer a thing. We are moving towards a more like gender equality. So we as students, we need to break that pattern. That is all that we need. Yeah, because I think gender doesn't play any role in terms of numbers. Yeah, thank you for the question.
Thank you again. So I guess you guys can answer to each other questions. I hope that all audiences can understand the feedback. So yeah, before we conclude these today's sessions, so first of all, I would like to say thank you to our panelists for giving your helpful responses throughout these today's sessions, and also thank you to everyone for listening to these discussions. So basically, we have heard that the gender stereotypes still influence on how students choose their path, whether on through expectations, pressure, or need to prove themselves. But then we also see that the change is actually happening, and it starts with awareness, open conversations like now, and also support from one another. So then, based on also for this session, we can see that each panelist show that the gender equality in education is not just about the numbers, is it? And then, but how we are trained and work together. So I hope that let's carry these ideas back to our classrooms, our project, and also our everyday interactions. So yeah, this forum is officially closed, but do not close this conversation, okay? So let's keep asking these questions and supporting one another, and also challenge the stereotypes wherever we see them. So yeah, again, thank you for being here, and have a nice day. Assalamualaikum.